everybody. Welcome back to Board Game Buzz. My name is Carly.
And I'm Kim.
And if it isn't obvious enough, we kind of have a different setup going on here today. And the reason why is because we are actually going to kind of be starting a little bit of a new segment on Board Game Buzz. So obviously we do our reviews and we do like our thoughts and talk, all about games. But I really wanted to kind of start a segment where it's just kind of us chatting and talking about different board game related topics. The reason why I kind of actually started thinking about this in the first place was because over on my Instagram channel, every handful of weeks or so, I pose just like a random question on my Instagram channel. And it's kind of funny because actually those are the posts that actually get like the least amount of attention on my channel.
Okay.
My reels are what get like the most attention, and normal pictures get a decent amount of attention, but those questions that I pose normally don't get a lot of people just don't really interact with them a lot. But I did post one I think it was last week, and it was basically asking what's a classic game or a game that's considered classic that you don't like. And I was shocked at the amount of people. I had about 300 responses to that question. I couldn't keep up with responding.
Yeah.
They just kept coming in and kept getting people private messaging me, chatting about this. So I was like, that would actually be fun to kind of sit down on my channel and talk about that with somebody.
Yeah.
And then that little thought kind of grew bigger, and I was like, well, what if we do that with lots of topics? Because now that Kim has been on the channel so much, and we're going to keep having her on the channel, it's like, Kim, it'd be so fun if we just sat down and we just had a certain segment on Board Game Buzz where we just talk about stuff. Because I personally enjoy listening to other board gamers and people in the hobby just kind of talking about random subjects. And I know you do too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and we naturally, because we are both passionate about board games, we naturally have these discussions between each other.
Anyways,
so let's bring more people in.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like I said, this is a new segment that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be calling it Buzz Chat. So this is Buzz Chat, episode 1, Buzz Chat. It's not going to be Buzz Chat, Buzz Chat. And yeah, just going to be kind of more informal, basically just us talking. It's going to be not a lot of editing, just chatting about board games because we love board games.
Yay!
So for this first episode, I actually wanted to talk about that Instagram post. And I wanted to kind of discuss it because I found it so fascinating for whatever reason. So the topic, I believe the question, the exact question is, what is a game that's considered classic that you don't enjoy?
Yeah.
And like I said, the responses were crazy. And so I guess my question is what do you consider a classic game?
That definition, I would say, has kind of changed for me in terms of becoming a serious board gamer. I think there are classic serious board gamers, the ones that are the top 20 on BGG.
Yeah.
I think you could look at those and be those are the board game. I can't think of a word to call it, but it's the top 20, and it's every serious board gamer should love all of those board games because they're the board game hall of fame, I guess, is what I'm thinking. If your game can make it in that top 20 list, just you're in the board game hall of fame, right? So that's what I think of in terms of now being a serious board gamer. But growing up, I probably would have considered games like Monopoly, Sorry, Scrabble.
Yeah.
Those are the Trouble, Chutes and Ladders.
The basic games that I feel everybody kind of plays.
And that I played growing up in my house up until I became a teenager and we started doing more party games and whatnot. And then I might include Scattergories and Loaded Questions and Balderdash and those as, and then that changed again when when you realize that there's a whole nother world of board games beyond those staples or those really simple ones, then it becomes Ticket to Ride and I was gonna say Scattergories again.
Yeah.
Settlers of Catan.
Yep.
Like, so I think those are like two big ones that I think people think of in terms of like gateway board games.
Yeah, I think when I'm thinking of like a classic or like a modern classic board game, I tend to think of board games that like help introduce people to the hobby, right?
Yeah.
So like you mentioned like Catan or Ticket to Ride or Monopoly. I just kind of tend to think about games that just are older and that most people just kind of like associate with board games, just kind of in general, without necessarily like, I feel like people can be aware of those games without being in the hobby. Tend to be more like in the mainstream, like when you like go to the grocery store or like when you go to Target and you just kind of see those same like basic games. I kind of tend to think about those because I don't know, I feel like they're just more open to the public, more accessible to the public. Somebody who's not a board gamer is probably not going to know like Everdell, but somebody who's not a board gamer will know Monopoly or will know Ticket to Ride. So for me, those are just the games that I kind of tend to think of when I think of like modern classic games, or just, I don't know, just games that are more accessible and more people have knowledge of. Personally. So I was going through all the responses on this and I was just so shocked at how many people were like so like heated, like there were like full on arguments going on, and people that were like just freaking out, talking about all the games that they hate or why they don't like all these modern classic games. And so as we go through this list, I don't want to like put hate on any of these games like at all. It was just something that I personally found really interesting were these comments. And so I went through and I found all of the games, like I tallied up all of the games that were voted on. And so I came up with the top 5. And I don't know, it was just kind of fascinating to me. So number 5 was Wingspan, which I know you've played Wingspan. And it's funny that, people associate Wingspan as a modern classic game. But I think that in like 20 years or 15 years, like I do see Wingspan being one of those games that will be considered like a classic game. However many years down the road.
You can get it at Target.
Because you can get it at Target. And I was at Target a couple of weeks ago, and there was a couple, and they were looking at all the board games, and they pointed to Wingspan. They're like, "Oh, I've heard about that one." And so I do think it's one that is becoming more mainstream, and I think it's one that more and more people are playing. But I was surprised that so many people like didn't like it. I know one of the responses was they don't like all the text on the cards, which I personally feel like Wingspan doesn't have a lot of text on the cards. I remember. But
I'll be honest, I was put off from Wingspan for several years, like because I had some board game friends and they didn't like it, and I'm like, and they like a lot of the same games that I like, and they just didn't like Wingspan, and they didn't really have a good reason why they didn't like it. They just didn't like it. So it's like, oh, okay, it must not be that great of a game. But then I finally played it with Carly, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a great game. Like, I really liked it. I now have my own copy that my kids are getting for Christmas. But
don't tell them.
Don't tell. So it's interesting that, I guess, because it's so like hyped up
I think it is. I think that hype, I think with everything, if something gets super hyped up, there's going to be that expectation that's set. And if it doesn't necessarily meet that expectation, then I feel like that drop is like way harder. You know what I mean? Like there's been times like where I've played a game that was like super hyped up or something. Like I always go back to Spirit Island. Which I know people are probably like so upset about. But like I heard so many great things about Spirit Island, so I just had like this really high expectation. And then when we played it, and granted, I don't think we got like the best play of it. I don't think we were taught right. But when that kind of happened, like I fell so hard because I had that high expectation, And so I think Wingspan, because it is such a huge game, and it is, it took the world by storm. I feel like it's still taking the world by storm. It is. I mean, I actually had a friend the other day who a friend up in Maine, and she sent me a picture. She was out eating lunch with her kids, and she saw somebody walk by carrying Wingspan, and so she actually sent me a picture. I'll post it if I can find the picture. But like I feel like it is really taking the world by storm, and so because of that hype, I feel like there's more people that, either go into it with really high expectations or have different expectations about what the game is, and so they come out kind of more hurt because of it.
I think the more like beloved something is, then the more likely people are like also hate on it.
Gonna hate on it? Yeah, I think so too. Okay, so number 4 was Risk. Number 4, the fourth most hated on game on this thread. Have you played Risk?
I have played Risk once.
Okay.
And it was in the first year of mine and my husband's marriage. We've been married 10 years. He asked me to play Risk with him, like, all the time. He's like, let me teach you Risk. Let me teach it to you. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to learn it. I don't want to learn it. And then finally one night I was like, you know what? Okay, let's do Risk. I'll play Risk with you. And I ended up beating him.
And he never wanted to play
He never wanted to play it again. Like, he was not happy that I beat him at the game, and we still own it, but we've never played it
You've
again.
never played it?
Yeah. Like,
in 10 years, you haven't played Risk.
Nope.
So I've played the regular Risk a handful of times. It was a while ago. But we actually owned like the Lord of the Rings version of Risk, which again, it's not like it's a perfect game by any means, but
it matters.
Yeah, it does. The theme. I definitely prefer like the Lord of the Rings one to like the base one. Like I said, like I think the theme obviously helps. But yeah, I mean, I think Risk is fine. For me, like, I guess I'm going to keep comparing it to the Lord of the Rings version because it's been so long since I played the base. But you do roll dice, right? Yeah. And so that's my biggest thing with Risk is, like, there's, like, no dice mitigation at all. And so there's been a handful of games that I've played where I've rolled the dice and I just have crappy rolls the entire time. And I just keep getting, like, my armies keep getting, like, beat down. And there's nothing that I can do about it. And it just sucks, you know?
That's, like, one of the things that can be a bummer about, like, player elimination games. Like, I love King of Tokyo, and I really like a game called Shadowhunters. I'm not a big fan of Bang, but those are all, like, player elimination games. And it's like, if you're out and you have a big group of people playing, they're like, well, what am I going to do for the rest of this time? Yeah. And I think that is definitely true with Risk if you're playing with multiple people. If you're just playing 2-player, like, fine, but I can see that being, like, one of those bummers, like, you're just failing, and then you get killed, and then you get eliminated, and you're like, oh, great, like, what do I do now?
Like, oh, well.
Yeah.
That sucks. Jamie, come here. Do you want to be in the video? Okay, so then the third one, which was not really surprising to me, was Ticket to Ride. Yeah. I know that was the one that you personally voted for on the thread. So why do you dislike Ticket to Ride?
I wouldn't say, like, I dislike it, but there's so many more wonderful board games that I would rather play. Like, and I recently played Trekking National Parks, which is kind of Ticket to Ride-y to me, but I like it more than Ticket to Ride. But, like, I felt like forever, so I didn't own Ticket to Ride until last year, and I think the last time I had played it, I was a teenager probably when I played it, and I liked it. Like, I remember liking it then, but now it feels kind of, like, boring to me. Like, there's just, and I got it last year because I'm like, oh, I think my kids will really like this. Yeah. This will be a great game to play with my kids, and I'll have fun playing it because I like it. But then, like, I played it with them. I'm like, I am so bored. Like, I just collect card after card after card after card.
Until you happen to get, until you happen to get what you need, and then you place it on your train. So, like, I have kind of the similar feelings of Ticket to Ride. Again, I don't, like, hate it. Yeah. And I know, like, my mom and my grandma, like, they love it. Like, we play it on BGA, like, all the time. Like, they love Ticket to Ride, which is fine. Yeah. But, yeah, kind of like with you, it's like, I feel just bored throughout it because it's like, and I'm surprised because Ticket to Ride, I mean, they played Ticket to Ride at the World Series of Board Gaming a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I'm just so surprised that Ticket to Ride has lasted as long as it has. Yeah. And it, like, I feel like so many people, just, like, consider it, like, such, like, a modern classic. So many people love it. Yeah. And I'm surprised at the amount of love that it gets because it is such a simple, literally all you do is just get cards until you get the right colors, the amount of train cards you need, and then you place. And then you do it again, and then you place. Yep. I'm surprised that it's lasted, like, as long as it has,
and there's
personally.
So many, like, expansions and versions of it. Like, so I don't even know how many.
And they just came out with the Legacy version. The Legacy version.
Maybe I'd be interested to see how that plays. I do like story-based games.
The reviews on it are really good, so we might have to get that
and I guess it's satisfying to, like, meet your location, when you finally get your train track across and you're like, I made it. Yay.
Yeah.
Like, I guess that is somewhat satisfying, but it's still just like, I'll keep it in my collection because I feel like whether I love it or not, it's one that should be in my
be in a
collection. And like, I think my kids do enjoy it and it's trains. So, but otherwise I'm just like, it falls short for me. Like,
yeah.
falls short for me at this point.
So number 2 was like no surprise. It was Monopoly, which I feel like everybody just loves to hate on Monopoly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's probably why it was number 2, because so many people were just like, oh yeah, Monopoly. Like,
yep.
Everybody hates on Monopoly in this hobby.
Uh-huh.
Which I mean, I don't enjoy Monopoly personally. I don't really.
I haven't.
Like, would you ever
played
be
it.
like, oh, like let's play Monopoly today?
No. Like, the idea of that is hilarious to me. Like, my 8-year-old, he'll ask to play Monopoly. And
Yeah.
he'll play it with his dad, and they'll play it together. And I think they enjoy playing it together and whatnot. But we also have, like, themed versions. Like, we have Pokemon Monopoly and Star Wars Monopoly. So, like I said, theme helps. So I think
Well, they've basically pasted Monopoly with every theme under the sun.
Yes.
Basically, whoever you are, there is a Monopoly theme out there that's like for you, basically.
honestly, I'm, like, surprised that there's still, like, such a market for that. Like, who...
I'm surprised too, because I mean, just the other day I saw like a Animal Crossing, like a brand new like Animal Crossing one or something. I'm just like, how are they still making? I'm surprised that they're still making the amount of money off Monopoly that's warranting and justifying all of these like rethemes and reskins and.
Maybe people collect Monopoly. Like, they just
They might just like collect
a collection
Monopoly.
of Monopoly. Like, I don't know. Is
Well,
that something that people do?
Well, something that somebody said, which I haven't really played all of the different themes, so I don't know if I don't know if this really applies. But what somebody said was the reason why they think Monopoly is so popular is because of the theme of just like building a corporate like building houses and then like people paying rent and their reasoning behind that was like everybody, like that's just a theme that everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, okay, maybe. I mean, I guess I could see that as being like, I don't know, some sort of like universal theme or something that we can all relate to. Because like, I mean,
well, it's painful. Think
yeah,
about it in terms
it's painful.
Like, yes, I'm just giving away my money. Take my money.
So maybe something about the theme is kind of what keeps drawing people. But yeah, Monopoly is one of those games that just, I don't think it'll ever go away. It'll never leave us alone.
Nope, it won't.
And then number 1, which was what I personally voted for, which is Catan. So how do you feel about Catan? Because I know you like it, right?
Yeah, so I know a lot of board gamers now hate on Catan. This is like another one that I think that everyone
I think
loves
people
to
are
hate.
starting to hate.
And I think it's because it's like when we were saying how Wingspan was really hyped up. When Catan came out, it was very hyped up. And when I was a teenager, people were like, "Oh, have you heard of this game? Have you played this game?" And I played the game, and I played it a bunch because I'd never played a game like it before. Before that, it was always the party games. It was Balderdash and Quelf.
Well, and I think that's why it was so, it did kind of, go crazy because it was very, at least I might be totally wrong, but from my understanding is it was very new in regards to, what it did, and, it really didn't do, not a lot of games before it really kind of did what it did. And it did kind of got released and kind of blew up and everybody was playing it.
Yep. And we played it all the time. And I mean, I'm feeling emotional for some reason because I love board games. I will always have a soft spot for Catan because it just introduced, they say it's a gateway game. For me, it was the gateway game to board games. Before that, I've always loved board games. I feel like I was always the one in my family who's yes, let's play this game. Whenever I had friends over, I'm let's play a board game. Like I said, they were always party themed games, and then it was just wow, there's so much more you can do in a game than just be silly and act out charades and whatnot. So I haven't played Catan in a while, but every once in a while I'm I want to play that because I mean, it is satisfying to like have people roll the dice and you collect your things and you're outgrowing. The most unsatisfying thing is that dang robber.
Yeah.
And I did cry once because I was attacked so many times by that dang robber when I think I was like 17, and I had to go to the bathroom and cry because I was just so upset. But
I think my thing with Katana is like, I feel like at least the handful of games that I've played, your starting placements are so freaking important.
They are.
Because I once played a game where I kind of got the short end of the stick, and I got like this crappy location, and very quickly like I got like cut off, and like it was just not a fun game for me at all, because I was like, this sucks. Like from like no fault of my own, I just happened to start here, and there was nothing that I could do to even remotely try to win or try to, like, from very early on in the game, I knew that I was dead. So I was just like, there's no way I'm going to win. I might as well just keep making random turns, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to lose anyways.
I would say that is one fault of the game. Like I said, that game that I cried because I was just so like stuck, and the robber, and like it's a core memory for me apparently, because I still remember the feeling of all that. But so yeah, I can agree with that frustration aspect and that dislike of the game. But regardless, like I said, I've got a soft spot for it.
Got a soft spot for it. Well, one of the things that I was kind of thinking about, so these are like the 5 most, the games that were voted on the most. So Wingspan, Risk, Ticket to Ride, Monopoly, and Catan. Is it Catan or Catan? What do you say?
I always said Settlers of Catan, but I think some people say Catan. So I don't know.
Okay, maybe comment below what it actually has.
I'm from the Midwest. That's.
But I think so. Do you think that like in like 30 years or so, like especially like the older ones, because like I said, I think Wingspan is just going to continue to grow. Mm-hmm. But like these older ones, like Risk, like Ticket to Ride, Monopoly, like do you think that those will still get played as often, like in like 20 years from now? Because, and the reason why I ask that is because I feel like some of the reasons why some of these games are so big is because they came out in a time where there weren't as many board games coming out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then now, fast forward to today, when there are thousands of games being released, and I think the hobby is growing and more people are coming into the hobby.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, I don't know, like, do you think those games in like 20 or 30 years, do you think they will still be around to the same popularity that they are? Let's not even talk about growth. Let's just say same. Like, if they're the same popularity that they are now in like 20 years.
That's a good question.
Because in Target, you can go to Target now, and 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't have seen Everdell.
Yeah,
you probably wouldn't have seen Wingspan. But you go to Target now, and you do see these games. They're starting to become more mainstream. They're starting to become more in retail stores. Yeah. People are, like I said, the hobby is growing. So do you think those games will die out eventually?
That is a good question. I think to some degree they will. Because you, as a somewhat more recent board gamer, aren't as familiar with some of like the more popular games that are 10 plus years old.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there is some of that, because there is essentially like always new games coming out. And like a lot of the games I think that are like in the hot spot on Board Game Geek right now are all like new release games.
Yeah, let's look that up. Yeah. What are okay, so let's go to Board Game Geek. I always forget how to find it up. How do you do the top 10?
Go to browse, and then you go to all games, all board games.
Okay, let's see if it loads. All right. Okay, so Brass, number 1, 2018, Pandemic 2015, Gloomhaven 2017, Ark Nova 2021, Twilight Imperium 4th edition 2017, Terraforming Mars 2016, Dune Imperium 2020, Jaws of the Lion 2020, War of the Ring 2011. So let's see. They're all after
2010, right?
So Twilight Struggle, which was 2005, is number 14, but that's the first one that's even like remotely older. If we keep scrolling down. Yeah, there's like nothing. Let's see. Mage Knight was 2011. That's surprising that they're all so new.
Yeah.
Puerto Rico is 2000. Okay, so that's going to be the oldest one. So
Yeah,
number 41, which is Puerto Rico, which was produced in 2002. But that's all the way down. That's like 41 down the
and
list.
Puerto Rico is to me, it's like a great game. It's so good. I love that game. But and I think 10 years ago, Puerto Rico was rated much higher than it is now even. And I think it's just, the possibility of just new games are coming out, new ideas. And I think that's great. It's amazing that we have like so many new ideas and concepts we're building upon. But I think it's very possible like some of these older games will get like definitely pushed out of the spotlight. And
it would be interesting, like, I don't know if this channel will be here in 10 years, but like it would be interesting if like however many years down the road we're able to look back on this video and like see, okay, yeah, so like this happened, this happened. Because again, I mean, Catan and Risk and Monopoly, they have been around forever. And they're still around, even though, you know, there's been so many board games, this whole like board gaming renaissance that's kind of been happening. They still have lasted. So they very well might, you know, just continue to just get rethemed.
Yep.
Continue to get rethemed.
Well, and I think with every I think that's one reason why games come out with expansions.
Yeah.
Because it's like, they got to stay relevant. They got to keep it in the spotlight. And whenever you release a new theme or release like an updated edition or a Kickstarter for a game, it helps like boost it again or become relevant to the new generation of board gamers.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious, like games that have come out semi-recently, like where they will be. You know, like what if, you know, instead of Monopoly kind of hitting, you know, just kind of most families' tables or like Scrabble or something. What if they do start pulling out Wingspan or, I don't know, like Flamecraft or something. I'm curious to see if those type of games start hitting the table more for like quote unquote non-gamers.
Yeah, what becomes the new family board game?
Yeah.
Like sit around the table, the traditional classic like family board game that you sit around and play.
Because I was thinking about this the other day because I feel like for people who are I mean, we always kind of refer to them as non-gamers, but just people who don't really play games like we do. I feel like when they sit down to play a game, I feel like the reason why some of these games have lasted so long, like Monopoly or I don't know, is because they don't really require too much thinking. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like, I don't know, because I feel like, you know, within like the gamer world, we like the thinkiness, we like the crunchiness, we like the, and that's not, I mean, people who don't play games, they don't like that. They don't want that in a game. They want to sit down and just not really think and just kind of have fun.
Yeah, be able to sit and chat nonchalantly while also playing a game.
And so that's why I think like Codenames has, you know, kind of lasted. And I feel like Codenames is considered I would consider that kind of a modern classic because it's a game that's accessible for anyone. You can sit down and just curious. Yeah, so let's go through. I'm going to quickly, so those were the top 5. I'm going to quickly kind of go through all the other ones that were rated upon, okay? So Seven Wonders Duel, which we actually just played.
Yes, we did.
We just played that. The person who commented that, they said they love Seven Wonders. They didn't like Seven Wonders Duel for whatever reason. Obviously, Monopoly, Gloomhaven, which I've only ever played Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion.
I haven't played it all. I have Jaws of the Lion, but I haven't gotten into it.
Saboteur, Dominion. Oh. Dominion. I feel like this list is going to hurt you.
Yes.
King of Tokyo.
Okay.
Feast for Odin.
Haven't played that one.
Everdell.
Okay.
Again, I feel like that's another one that's like, it was so popular.
Yeah.
So I feel like
it's very hyped up.
Yeah. So I feel like there's that group of people that are like, no, Everdell's terrible. Wizard. Sheriff of Nottingham. I've never played that one, actually.
I have that one.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. It's like I think it's an okay game. It's fun. It's a good one to play when you have a crowd of people. And like you have a larger board game. I'm not going to pull it out to play. I probably wouldn't pull it out to play with me and Carly and maybe a couple other people. But like if I just have the group of people, let's do Sheriff of Nottingham. It can be amusing. Yeah. It can be funny. But
so Werewolf.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Or it's werewolf, not one night werewolf.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was And then code names, which we just mentioned. La Havre. I think that's how you say that. La Havre.
I don't know
I
that
don't know how to
one.
say it. I can never pronounce it. Uno. It's so funny
I guess it's a classic.
Uno.
Classic card game.
Brass Birmingham. Power Grid.
Yeah,
Which is
that one. That one.
I feel like you're gonna need a therapy session after this.
That one hurts me. That's a 10 for me. Power
Yeah.
Grid is such a great game.
Can you see why people wouldn't like it?
Can I see why? I guess
Is it-
they
you said
don't
it's-
want to play a long game. Power Grid can be long.
Long.
But I don't know. It's long.
That's like your only thing.
And it can be, I guess, who is this person? What kind of board games do they play?
No, your question is, who is this person? How can I find them and
Yes.
change their mind?
Yes. Because that is my husband's favorite game. And I really like it. Race for the Galaxy is my favorite game.
Yeah.
But I still rate it, like I said, it's a 10 for me. So, that one hurts.
So then Terraforming Mars, Nuns on the Run.
Oh, I like that one.
I totally don't know how to pronounce this one. I wrote it down, but I don't
Parcheesi.
Okay, I don't even know that one. Do you know that
I think it's like, do you have like the spots? I think it's kind of like Sorry.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Okay, I haven't heard
I'm
of that
sorry
one.
if I'm wrong, but I think it's like Sorry.
So Terra Mystica, Spirit Island, which again I kind of agree with Spirit Island, but Sorry, Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Oh,
Another
that one
that you
also hurts. That one.
It's another one.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hate being the traitor, so I can understand that if they just don't like games where you have someone be a traitor.
Yeah, the traitors,
I can understand that because I hate being the traitor, but it's so thematic, so it's fun.
Jaipur. I'm sorry. There's a couple of these that I cannot pronounce. Flex, Exploding Kittens, Root.
That one also hurts.
Yeah, I know. Carcassonne.
I'm trying not to take these personally.
Munchkin. Twilight Imperium, Pictionary, Agricola, Candyland, Hungry Hippos.
You don't like trying to get the marbles?
Mousetrap, and then Cascadia.
Okay.
So those were, I might have missed a couple, but when I
You
went
really like
through,
Cascadia, don't you?
I really like Cascadia. So those were basically all the ones that people voted on my Instagram page. So again, as we're going through this list, this is not like to throw shade at any of these board games, but it was just a list that I just found really fascinating. And I just kind of, the more I thought about it, I was like, I just kind of really wanted to talk about this and why are classic games important? And so that's kind of what I wanted to ask you is why are games that are considered modern classics, why are they important?
I feel like I touched on it a little bit before with Catan. Like I said, I don't know. Thinking about it makes me emotional. I feel silly. I'm an emotional person. I think about what that game. One thing I mentioned to Carly recently was, so I had this dream journal that I filled out a little bit at the beginning of the year, and one of the questions on this journal was what would make life ridiculously fun? And one of the things I wrote was more board games.
Board games.
I want to have time to play more board games because board games bring me a lot of joy and I feel happy when playing them and I love to play them with people and that's the best social activity I feel like there can be and I like playing it with my family. And so it's just I just think about Catan and opening up this whole range of board games for me, realizing that there's a whole nother world of games out there that I could be bringing out and playing. When shortly after we got married and we moved to an area where I didn't really know that many people, we went to a board game night group and it just allowed me to meet those became our core friends, were those people that we played with. And so I just feel like for me that it's just brought me, if I hadn't played those classic games or didn't have access to those games that I grew up playing, like I would be missing out on a whole world of like joy and fun and friendships. So I guess to me, like, that's personally why I think it's important.
Well, I think board games, I feel like the entire purpose behind board games is simply to bring people together, right? Mm-hmm. That is kind of like the purpose behind board games, is to connect and have fun with other people. And so no matter who you are, even if you are not, an experienced board gamer and you do like Monopoly is your game that you play every Sunday, then that board game is fulfilling its purpose, right? Its purpose, which is to simply bring people together. And I feel like the reason why modern board games, or modern, like what we consider, modern classic board games, are so important is because, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have all these other ones. And, like you said, I feel like so many of those modern classics do bring people into this hobby. Yeah. And they help expand people's minds and help being like, oh, like you said, oh, there are different games out there. There's not just these ones. So I feel like that's important. Yes, honey.
And like, in addition to that, we have our board game group that we have. One of our friends, he was saying, he's like, I want to try to make it every Tuesday. He's a PhD student, and he's like, because this is my only social outlet, is coming to the board game group. And then thinking about, shout out to Larry, our new friend Larry. Carly met him over the summer, and now we've played board games with him a few times. And it was like, he brought Castles of Burgundy, and we played Foundations of Rome with him. And it was just like, we had known each other forever. I'd never met him before, but it was like, I feel like that's what board games can do for people. Like, and
like we never would have like met him,
right,
if it wouldn't have been for board games, yes. And like we wouldn't, and I feel like that way with a lot of people, like I feel like we wouldn't have become like as good friends, if like we wouldn't have played games the first few times, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, I feel like board games are a way, I agree with you, they're a way of just simply bringing people together. And I feel like we need more of that in the world. So no matter what games you play, whether it is Monopoly or Catan or some of these,
Power Grid,
like literally, it like anything that helps you connect with the people around you is a good thing, and then that board game is fulfilling its purpose, right? Yes. So there's no need to like hate on all these games. I know sometimes we get riled up, and I don't think that anybody in my comments were like really truly meant it in a hateful way. Yeah. Because again, I hopped on board. I voted for Catan. I was like, that's a game that I don't really care for. But if you do care for Catan, or if you do like Ticket to Ride, that's great. That's wonderful. As long as you are, playing the games that you love and interacting with the people around you, like that's the entire purpose of board games. That is literally, that's the entire purpose of board games. And I think we just need more of that in the world. So more board games, the better, in my opinion.
Yes, 100%.
All right. Well, that was our first little discussion on Buzz Chat. This was our first episode. So I am excited to, we're going to keep sitting down and keep pumping out more of these videos. I'm not really sure how often we'll pump them out, but we'll get them to you as quickly as we can because we love chatting about board games.
Yep, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And if you have any topics that you would like to see us discuss or talk about in this little segment that we're doing, please drop all of your suggestions in the comments below, and we will try to get to them as soon as we can.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It would mean so much to me, and it helps support us in everything that we're doing on the channel. Thank you so much for watching.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye. Okay.
I'm like, I'm trying to think, why would they not like Power Grid? Do they not like line games, I guess? Games where you're...
Is it complicated?
I think once you're playing, it's not. I guess it's
might be complicated
hard to
learn.
teach. Yeah, and complicated to learn.
Yeah.
You're going to have to play it.
We'll have to play it. And then I'll have my friend.
And then you'll be like, Kim, why do you like this game?